I was very excited to be invited to speak for an event by the American Heart Association. And, you know, I was delighted, but a little bit concerned when they asked me, because I said, now, you understand that I don't speak about anything medical. And they said, yes, we know that. We thought it would be interesting because all your books have heart in the title, and I do blog about matters of head and heart. And so I said, okay, great. So when I gave this talk, I started with this little story about a woman who came up to me in Colorado Springs, which is one of our 2 homes, and said, gee, I want to thank you for helping me through my pregnancy. When I gave her a blank stare, she said, oh, you don't have to be modest. I know how dedicated you nurses are. And then I didn't have the heart to tell her what I think had happened. She probably was a patient of my husband's and was in his office where she saw a picture of me in my costume. So I had to explain, my husband is a real doctor and I am a fake nurse. Anyway, I learned a lot from being on Days of Our Lives. It was a great show, I worked with great people, and I got interested in this longer form of storytelling. So when I left the show, I started my own soap, but I did it for radio. So what happened was I was invited to perform in this little town called Cambria, which is about halfway between Los Angeles and San Francisco. And I became quite enchanted with that part of the world and with this little town. Now, I grew up in Tokyo, which at that point had 11 million people, and there must have been maybe 1,000 people in Cambria. So I thought, well, how do people live here? What is life like? How do people relate? And I started reading the paper and getting to know local people. During the run of the play, a gentleman came backstage, and he owned the local radio station. So he said, if you ever want to do something on the radio, let me know. So that was sort of ticking over in the back of my mind, working on days, thinking about the radio station, and I thought, how about one of those old soap operas, you know, that style. So I called him and asked if he might be interested, and he said he'd actually always wanted to do that. So I wrote some scripts. I had to come up with a name for my fictitious town. Cambria is a Welsh name. Looked at the map and found that there was a place called Milford Haven, and it just rang for me. So I sent scripts, but then I didn't hear anything. And then I called, and the phone number had changed. So I thought I'd better drive up there and find out what was going on. It's about a 4-hour drive. Well, the radio station was a cute little cottage, and when I visited there before, there was a pot of coffee, and his wife had, you know, little chintz curtains, and this time things had changed. About a month worth of dishes in the sink, and there were these eclectic rock and roll posters all over the walls, and behind the desk, 3 bearded gentlemen and a cloud of marijuana smoke. So I said, is Wally here? No, he sold the station. Oh. I've been sending Milford Haven. Oh yeah, we've been throwing those away. Oh, so I had maybe one more moment before I'd be out the door, and I said, well, what if I had sponsors? And they got very interested. So I said, how does it work? Do you have a rate card? Yes, we have a rate card. So I walked up and down Main Street in Cambria. And you know, it was my moment of fame in Cambria, because they knew me from the play. I was on a TV show, and I asked if I did a radio drama, would you like to support it? And they said yes, and I went back to the station at the end of the day with a bunch of money. So they said, you're on the air. I said, well, when? Well, as soon as you can get ready. So I had to get back to LA, find a cast, called all my actor friends, find a recording studio where we could record. And so we started.